Hello and welcome to another Dev Diary walkthrough thingamabob. Still don't have a catchy name for this. If you've got one for me, feel free to tell me. Anyway, let's just get right into it. So, yesterday when I did this, I only got through 2 Dev Diaries. I've got 3 queued up, but if we're running, quite late into a video, by the time I get to the end of the second, we're probably going to do 2 again. But we'll see. So this time we're looking at Hispania, and immediately we can see that there are 5 different regions in Spain, and this is going to be coming in, not in this Dev Diary, but in the 3rd Dev Diary. I think it's actually the 2nd Dev Diary. Regions like this are going to, play an important part. So anyway, let's talk about Hispania. So Hispania is divided into 5 regions for administrative purposes. Baetica, Constantania, I pronounced that horribly. Sorry, I pronounced that perfectly. Tarraconensis, Galencia, and Lusitania, based on historical divisions of the peninsula, but also serve the gameplay purpose of governorships. And that's what's in the next one. As far as possible, I would make use of these to structure the go-through of the map. Sorry. I don't know. The way these sentences are written sometimes are a bit weird. Only breaking the format to keep together tribal federations. Right, so Baetica is the south, so what we would call like Andalusia, basically. The most part of Hispania is Baetica. This region is a great source of mineral wealth, from everything from iron to base metals to the bountiful precious metal mines of the Sierra Nevada mountains. I didn't know the Sierra Nevada mountains were a thing. If you told me that these were a thing, I would say, oh, in America? No, apparently they're here. But it's also a rich agricultural reason. It would grow to be one of the greatest sources of olive oil, wine, and fish, especially the fish sauce. It's fish sauce again. I've never heard of fish sauce, other than a sauce that you put on fish, but I assume this is a sauce made from fish, which just sounds absolutely revolting. But apparently it was the staple of a Mediterranean diet. It's culturally Iberian, home to the stronger and more united tribes of Hispania. The Turdetani in particular is one of the stronger powers in Hispania at this point in time, often acting to attempt to block the influence of the Phoenician and Greek colonies on the coastline. So this part here is Carthage, and I assume that this one here is... I assume that this one here is, what's it called? Turdetani. Yes, I was right. It's right there. Yeah. Alright, so the starting countries, we've got Turdetania, Tartessia, Menes, Gadir, Turdulia, Sinetia, Uburania, Oritania, Garmania, and Mentasania. And of course, I pronounced all of those flawlessly. Anyway, moving on to Contestania. I'm gonna get better at these, I promise. So yes, we're looking at this region. And would historically become soon come to be called the Carthaginian Hispania. Yeah, in the Punic Wars, Carthage ended up conquering, or having this be a part of its territory. I don't know if conquering is really the right word. It's more like they became his like feudatory, vassal, tributary area peoples. But there is Nova Carthago around here somewhere. I don't even know if they own it at the start of the game. I can't see it there. Would be around this Mastia area, I think. Little direct Carthaginian influence over the region. The future site of the great Carthaginian city is controlled by Iberian tribes. Yeah, so there we go. Carthago Nova is not there just yet. Split between Iberian and Celtiberian tribal kingdoms, this region is considerable economic wealth. I feel like they say this a lot. If it can be properly consolidated and developed. Together with Tarraconensis, this region is home to 2 of the more important tribal groups in the peninsula, the Celtiberi and the Carpetani, and for simplicity's sake we'll describe both groups in their entirety here rather than split them between sections. So here we have Bastitania, Mastia, Constantania, Daetania, Hemeroscopian, Editania, Sagentum, and Lobetania. Right, and now we're going into the tribes. So this is an interesting thing with the tribes. So, the Carpetani is a tribal identity, but not a unified federation. There are a number of tribal Carpetani kingdoms that could come to form a united Carpatanian tribal federation if they can unite their home areas by either conquest or voluntary submission. Not a lot is known of each tribal kingdom, but they would in time come into conflict with Carthage and also supplied the following Carthage with mercenaries. The main city in this region, Teletum, would come to become a major urban settlement under Roman rule. So, basically, if you are one of these nations, Cilicia, Duitquia, Tertullia, Elerquilla, Muenisisilla, and Duniculilla, then you will be able to form Carpatani Kingdom, or Carpatani Tribal Federation. I don't know what the tag is going to be called. But yeah, I find that very interesting that they're splitting them up into like tribal things, and then these tribes can form this tag, these tribes can form this tag. And then we've got the Celtiberi states of Arevatia, Olcadia, Boletia, and Bella Lasonia, and Tithia. So interesting that they put these all together, and they must be real small. But you can't really see from there where they are. I found Tithia. God, so many tags. There is so many tags. I really wish I'd gone through and counted them all, actually, because I'm absolutely certain that there are more tags here than actual provinces in EU4. Like, it's crazy how detailed they've got for a region that we know relatively little about. I mean, the Romans, of course, they wrote a lot down. The Greeks as well, they wrote a lot, they transcribed their histories, and so we know a lot about them. But these guys didn't. These guys didn't write down. Like, the information we have about all these tribes comes from their enemies, Rome, mostly, and a little bit of Carthage. But yeah, it's just amazing how they've managed to do this. And I'm sure there are some here that have little more than a name attributed to them. It's like, oh yes, the tribe of Anavatia in this region, they were defeated in this battle, and that's all they've got for them. Maybe, like, this is just me spitballing. But then they've managed to actually make a nation out of it, and every nation having a flag as well. Like, none of these countries really had flags, but they all do here. I think it's just very impressive. Anyway, there is Emporian, Indicetia, Cassitania, Ilervicavuricada, Seditania, Occitania, Ilergetia, Vasconia, Vardulia, Caristia, and Autrigonia. By the way, I'm just saying these out loud. Like, it doesn't really make much difference if I say them or just like let you read them. I'm saying them purely because I did it one time and then people kind of liked it and thought it was hilarious how I was trying to pronounce them, so that's why I'm keeping doing it. Now, we have Galicia. This region was, if I remember rightly, the last part of Hispania to be conquered by the Romans, and the only part of Hispania to not be conquered by the Arabs/Berbers, just Muslims in general, during the original conquista. So yeah, the people who live in these areas, they're a hardy folk. I mean, a lot of it is like mountains and hills, and you know, it's very rugged, rough terrain. So the people that live there, probably even today, are some solid folk. So in the far north lies the region of Galicia, a hilly and somewhat isolated yet heavily fortified region. Galicia is home to a great number of tribal kingdoms, from Cantabrians to the east to the Caletians in the west, and would be one of the last parts of the peninsula to be conquered by Roman troops. Precious metals and iron can both be found here in great quantities. So we've got Vicetia, we've got, oh, this is all just Vicetia, and Termagodia. Put them in bullet points, dude. Bullet points, they're very useful. And then we've got the Caletian tribes. So again, there's going to be a Caletian tribal kingdom, I guess. Yeah, Caletian tribal kingdom. Of Coporia, Gravia, Intermitia, Lunia, Neria, Suria, Silenia, Tamagania, Varinia, Oreganomasia, Caledonia, Bracaria, Baencia, Beda, Aronia, Albionia, and Abacosia, pronounced flawlessly. And we've got the Asturian tribes that can form a Asturian tribal kingdom, I assume. Amatia, Benonetia, Kinguria, I'm sorry. Just the pronunciations are just perfect, but god-awful. Lanciencia, Ligonia, Paencia, Silinia, Superatia, Tiburia, and Zuelia. Then we've got the Cantabrian tribes of Avarigania, Conicia, Canacania, Blendia, Morcania, Tamaritia, and Vardinia. Am I done? Can I stop now? So now we've got divided between we've got the Lusitania. Lusitania? Yes. It's not yet free from direct foreign influence of the Carthaginians or Greeks. The region is perhaps not endowed with agricultural and mining resources. There are still precious metals here, as Baetica, but still represents considerable wealth. There's that again. Everywhere has got considerable wealth. Nice. And power to anyone who can unify it. And we've got Oppidania, which I believe is the nation that murdered one of the guys in the Dev Clash, and then he switched to Oppidania. Celtica, Cephania, Campsia, and Bardulia. And the Lusitanian tribes, Pisuria, Albicoria, Tapolia, Gaetania, Lanciencia, Aravia, and Tuluria. They can form the tribal kingdom. And then finally, Vetonian tribes of Bletonicia, Caluria, Orianesia, Calatonianesia. Oh good god, I'm glad that's over. Oh, let's move on. Let us move on to this one. So this one was written by Johan because Trintagula was away. So instead of doing a bunch of map stuff, as Trintagula has been doing with all of his dev diaries, there's just a lot of mechanical stuff, which I personally appreciate quite a bit because I don't have to pronounce shit. But basically, in an earlier dev diary, I think one that I probably did a video on, but I can't recall exactly. Basically, it was stated that the provinces, so the small areas, each would have a governor, but during playtesting, they found that this was not fun, basically. So now they've got these large regions, and each large region has its own governor. I really like this change a lot. Of course, if you've got a lot of little places, you can be very min-maxy on what kind of governors you put in there, and if you want the governor to be a certain, traits or something like that. Like, you could go really hard. Maybe role players would really have enjoyed that. But for me, having just one governor for the entire area is a much better idea, and sort of fits what at least Rome did. Like, when you would finish your consulship, you would get... No, not when you finish consulship. When you finish... what was it that they finished and then got control of a region? It wasn't the consulship, although I think after your consulship, you also got a region to own. Maybe it was after your time as a general? Generals were consuls. Maybe it was consulship. I'm not sure. But anyway, like Caesar had Cisalpine Gaul and also Gaul, but Cisalpine Gaul was his primary. Usually they'd have one, but sometimes if they're super special, like Caesar, they'd have 2 or 3 or whatever. But anyway, yes. So now we've got the characters that will be able to be in control of entire regions, and they would administrate it. They would obviously be paid a wage. Maybe, actually, yeah, they probably would be paid a wage, but maybe they could just live off this area of land. Maybe that would make more sense. It doesn't say anything in here about a wage, but I would assume that it probably would be. Changing policies no longer impacts the loyalty of the governor, as it turned into a non-choice in most cases. Instead of oratory power cost, it is the same whether it's a governor or your rulers directly control provinces. So yeah, if you want to change the policies, basically the edicts of your region, it's not going to change loyalty, which is nice. I think that's a good change, because you want to kind of min-max what you do with your regions. And oh, we finished culture converting all this area to the culture that I like. I'm going to change it now to a trade-focused edict. I don't know what the edicts are yet. And then the guy is disloyal because of it. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I like this change. It's good. And your capital region will not have a governor assigned to it. Like, that's your own personal domain, I guess. Anyway, moving on. Not just a name. You get messages about characters in like events and such, and instead of it just being a name, you don't have any names here, but instead of it just being the name of a person that you might not be, keeping all that much track of, now it's going to do by your titles and relationships to titles. So Governor X, husband of blah de blah, cousin of your doodad kind of thing, I assume. And now families as well. We've seen this in the Dev Clash. Like you have your families all put into different groups, basically, instead of just one big list of people or one big list of portraits. Although I really hope that they fix the hair thing. Like, the hair being this transparent is very, very off-putting. Like, it looks great, everything looks great, and then you get to this hair and it's like, oh god, no. Anyway, so characters, if they are a foreign family, they won't marry on their own or be entirely trusted. So that's, trust is going to come into it as well. When conquering and annexing another nation, you now have choices of how to handle families of that country, even allowing them to become families of your nation or on a family by family basis. And we saw this with Kaiser Johann in the Dev Clash, where he kept the Boy family when he murdered the player playing Boy. He kept the Boy family, and they're now a family of his country, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, moving on. So diplomatic actions. Instead of when you click, offer alliance, and then you got to unpause the game, and then you wait for the country to accept or decline or whatever. Now it's an instantaneous thing. Which apparently also makes it a lot better for the AI, as things might change in that one day. Obviously not a lot would change in most cases, but sometimes it would flip them one way or the other. You see that a lot with peace deals in EU4. You set up your peace deal and there is a tick, and so you send the peace deal, and then the next day a combat occurs somewhere during the war, and then they get that negative, is it 40? Negative 40 from ongoing battles? Even if it's one that they have no hope of winning, ongoing battles penalty, and then they'll decline. And you've got to wait a month until you can offer it again, and maybe during that month they managed to de-siege something that you kind of needed to take from them. So yeah, instantaneous stuff, which is good. And also now, instead of having to hover over something, you'll get some information at the top, which is quite nice. Now, there's Instantaneous Diplomacy that I told you about. Loyalty gain on troops. Now you can hover over it and see, if there's a percentage chance increasing for them being loyal to the general rather than the nation state, which is nice. You'll be able to check that. Alright, lovely. Attrition. Oh, this one's interesting. This one's very, very interesting. So, in EU4, if you have a stack of 40, they can walk into a province that has 40 supply limit. Doesn't matter if your army is consisting of all infantry, all cavalry, all cannons. Doesn't matter. It's just 40 can sit in 40. And then obviously maneuver is affecting that as well. Not so here, and while interesting, I have a fear that it's going to be a bit awkward. So, light infantry cost 50% of a normal unit supply, heavy infantry and heavy cavalry cost 50% more supply, and war elephants cost 500% of supply. So 10,000 light infantry will require a supply limit of 5. 10,000 war elephants will require a supply limit of 50. And 10,000 heavy infantry would require a supply limit of 15. That is gonna be very, very interesting to be able to deal with that. Because you can't just look at, oh, I've got this army, and next to this army has a little, bar saying 40,000 troops. You can't then look at a province and say, oh, this has got 40 supply limit weight, therefore I can move this army there. No. It all matters about what units you have in that army. I feel like that's going to make it so that looking at a province's supply limit is going to be kind of useless, and instead you're going to want to like select the army and then switch to the supply limit map mode. I really, really hope they have a supply limit map mode. I think they do. I'm certain they do. I know they do. Because otherwise that's going to be painful. That's going to be very painful to deal with. Anyway, most of the times when you have a nice capital surplus of a specific trade good, you not want to lose that bonus. This is why we've added a checkbox in the trade view where you can set to auto decline all trade proposals. Nice, like it. National overview. Main information page in Imperator is the country overview screen. That one has been evolving constantly during development. Will continue to evolve as we work on the game. Since the last time we showed this screen, in the middle of November, we've now added some nice pie charts so you can depict the distribution of your population when it comes to type, religion, and culture. I like it. I love me some pie charts. Pie charts are great. Release Victoria 3 to tomorrow, please. Since popularity and corruption of your current ruler is important for your country, it's also displayed prominently in the national overview. Which one is that? Maybe this, and this one be tyranny? Yeah, that's probably it. Ruler popularity reduces your tyranny, and in a republic increases the Senate's influence of the ruler's party. Monarchies and tribes get other benefits of a ruler's popularity or lack thereof, while corruption of a ruler has a few different drawbacks. Lovely, okay. Improvements to the user interface. Most screens have a back button, so you're clicking on a screen, you go to a next screen to check something, you can just click the back button and bring back where you were. Automatic shortcut icons to tooltips to tell you which button can be used from the keyboard for the action. Love me some keyboard shortcuts. And finally, we've added a filter and sorting buttons to most screens with a long list of characters, countries, or provinces. One thing I'm definitely going to be wanting to use that on is this. There needs to be more filters here, please. To go back to the example of when they were looking for the boy family in Kaiser Johann's Rome, they were scrolling down. This list is fucking huge when you got like a medium-sized country. They were scrolling forever and they missed it, and they went back like 3 times before they found it. There has to be something in here, like a box here where you can type a name. Like you could type Argonid and it would bring you to the Argonids. I want some filters in here. I want some filters. Anyway, moving on. We were here, yes. Anyway, yeah, that's I guess that's it. So that's the second one, and I think we do have time for a third dev diary. So back to Dragula when we talk about mercenaries. So we've seen mercenaries a bit in the dev clash, and it's quite interesting the way they work. Basically, the point is there are just mercenary armies on the map, and obviously you can see there 19,000. They've got a black box, and you're just not using them because they're just there. So what you do with them is you go to your mercenaries tab, which is right here, or maybe it's a button you click and you bring this thing up, and you find a bunch of mercenaries. They're sorted by proximity to, I assume, your capital, and to recruit them it costs you 50 military mana, the helmet thing at the top here. Once you have recruited them, you pay, I think it's 400% of their of the maintenance. So if you had an army that is exactly the same as this 19,000, the same composition, these guys would be 4 times as expensive, which is kind of crazy. I don't think mercenaries cost that much more in EU4, but it's going to take some getting used to. And disbanding these mercenaries also costs you money. So yeah, that's very interesting. Immediately brings it under your control, right? And if it's in a foreign empire's area, it's going to be black flagged, exiled, and you have to bring it into your own area and then use it. So you want to get the ones that are closest because you're paying them since day one. As soon as you hire these guys, they are going to be paid for, and you don't want to pay them while they're walking across half the map because that could take some time. I think that is all that here that I want to talk about. Yep, okay, moving on. Desertion and mercenary princes. Yeah, so if you go into a deficit, see here he's got like negative 108 ducats, your mercenaries can defect and start fighting for the enemy side. That's a very interesting way of working with mercenaries. To be honest, I really like this system. I like it much more than the one they've got in EU4. In EU4, mercenaries are just an infinite manpower pool. They cost a bit more, but they don't cost manpower, and you can just use them. And they're kind of boring, in all honesty. They try to tweak them a bit to make them a bit more interesting with, well, not make them more interesting, but make them less of the meta by increasing the cost like 3 times or something, increasing the maintenance of them. But it's still late game when you've got absolute shit tons of money. You're going to be using mercenaries because manpower is useful. So yeah, now we've got this thing where they will defect if you run out of money, and they'll start fighting for the enemy, that's interesting. And especially when you're paying 400% the maintenance. If you really need that Merc army to win your war, you gotta be sure that you can pay for them, because otherwise you're just making your enemy stronger, and God, that's gonna be painful. That's gonna be so fucking painful. So other thing that happens is if you have if you're a monarchy and you have 2 sons and you die, one of your sons becomes the new monarch. The other son is technically a pretender to the throne, and various things can happen with them. Sometimes he can be very loyal, be able to make him a governor, happy families, whatever. Or he could, have a low loyalty and try and seize the throne. And another thing he can do is become a mercenary captain. So he would be the general of a mercenary army. And as someone who does kind of like to roleplay a little bit in my games, I am just hoping that at some point I see my brother or nephew or something, some scorned individual in my family, becoming a mercenary captain and my enemies using him against me. I think that would be really fun. See, it's mostly for role players or people who care about the characters. Like, I can be one of those people. I can do min-maxy sometimes, but I find it less fun than just, min-max. Not role-playing. It's fun. I like role-playing. Now, Arabia. So, Arabia is it's weird area. So, south of Arabia is where all the population is, and there's actually some quite fertile land down here. Not hugely fertile, but relatively. Compared to this bit is a veritable garden. So yes, the Arabian Peninsula is at the time isolated and integrated in the Mediterranean world. The region is closely tied to the trade network of the Indian Ocean, so like spices and that sort of thing. And trade is the lifeblood of the more advanced of the Arabian kingdoms, just as it is in EU4, to be honest. Throughout history, southern Arabia has been more than densely populated and more developed part of the peninsula. Temperate highlands provide a basis for agriculture and larger cities, while the coastline is strategically situated to benefit from the trade flowing between Africa, India, and the Mediterranean. This is how the region came to be described as Arabia in Greek and Latin, and Al-Yaman in Arabic. I guess that's where Yemen gets its name from. It's home to a number of Asian kingdoms with their own writing, bureaucracy, and mode of government. Up until recently, this area was dominated by the Sabaean kingdom, but is now divided between a number of smaller kingdoms. I assume that if one of these kingdoms manages to conquer the rest of them, they could probably form the Sabaean kingdom. I do like me some formable countries. So we've got Saba, Himjar, Kataban, Hadramut, and Ma'in. Pronunciation perfect as per usual. So yeah, very nice looking map again. I'm gonna bring that up probably in every dev diary that I do, because I just absolutely adore the map. It's fucking gorgeous. Very nice. Look, the mercenaries here. Northern Arabia is not nearly as fertile or settled as the south. It's dominated by huge Syrian and Arabian deserts, which most people have a hard time crossing. Yeah, no shit. Oh, bringing it back actually to the supply limit thing that we talked about earlier. I wonder if camels are going to get a supply limit modifier in deserts, because that would be very interesting. That would be very interesting indeed. If they had that supply limit modifier in the desert, say 50% of supply, but then in any normal area there would be 100% of supply. That could bring in some interesting strategies. Arabian pops are also present far beyond the region where the Arabian states exist at our start, opening up the possible formation of more such states in the future in Syria and Mesopotamia. So we have Lihan, Thamud, Thaqif, Kedar, Gera, Makkah, and Tylos. So yeah, that's interesting stuff. I do like the way that mercenaries work. It's a bit odd seeing them on the map permanently, but I think it could open up some very interesting things, and it could be that if you don't want to pay for an army, just hinge your entire war strategy on the potential of buying mercenaries. If you have a horribly strong economy, then just using mercs to fight your wars could be a valid strategy. We'll see, we'll see. Anyway, that is me done for the day. I hope you've enjoyed this this dev diary overview thing. Word, I don't know what I'm calling these days. It's like the 25th one I've done. Still haven't come up with a catchy name for it. If you have a catchy name for it, tell me in the comments. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found this interesting and informative. If you did, feel free to click the like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one tomorrow. Bye bye for now.